So, you've just spawned into the world. Now what? Welcome all to an Astral Sorcery tutorial for 1.16. Today we're going to be going all over the basics and how you get started in Astral Sorcery, but first I would just like to say if this tutorial helps you out in any way, shape or form, please leave a like and subscribe, it really helps me out, and join the Discord for any updates whether I go live or a video gets uploaded. Link down in the description. So, where do you start? I mean, the first place you need to start is finding one of two structures, and the main structure we need to be finding is something similar to this. Now this here is an ancient shrine, and underneath one of these ancient shrines is a little sort of temple area that has one of these crystals. Now as you see at the top there it says Decidia collector crystal. It could be any other type of collector crystal. As long as you have a collector crystal underneath one of these temples, you're in a good place. Now inside one of these ancient temples, shrine majiggers, you will also have a couple of chests where you can get various different items inside, and they can spawn even things that are outside of vanilla and also the rest of the mod. Now these ancient shrines, they spawn in extreme hills biomes, so I recommend looking around anything sort of like mountains like this in order to find it. Another type of shrine is a desert shrine, very similar to this, except it's most likely going to be buried with sand, and of course you're going to find it in the desert. But these desert shrines also hold a collector crystal underneath. There are also some smaller shrines around. This one here is actually a small shrine itself. They don't hold too much value, however, underneath one of the pillars there will be a secret hidden chest which you can access and will also have some goodies in. Besides that, there's also a tiny shrine which is smaller than this, however it holds no value, it's purely decoration, no chests or anything. And the last one is a treasure shrine. Now the treasure shrine is a temple that is underground, and inside you'll have an ore block in the center of it, and every time you break this ore, another one will automatically be spawned, and it can be from any single mod in the game or vanilla of what this ore could be. So you've now found your ancient shrine or desert shrine. Now's it's time to actually start the mod. Something to know that this mod adds only 3 resources to the game, one of which is marble. As you can see here, it's very plain, you can find it underground, it spawns in similar ways as to diorite, andesite or granite. As well as that, there are also 2 other types of blocks. We have the rock crystal, which will spawn underground very deep, down by bedrock level, but it's so rare that it's unlikely you're probably going to find it just through ordinary strip mining. The other is aquamarine shale. Now this spawns over in any sort of water body, so that could be lakes, rivers, the ocean, it doesn't matter where, but it will be underwater and spawn just like this. Now when you break it, you'll actually get 2 aquamarine. Now the aquamarine is just like little gems like this, and you'll get a little stack of 2 of them every time you break some aquamarine shale. Now the very first thing you should make with this aquamarine is the guidebook for Astral Sorcery. In some mod packs you may spawn with it when you enter the game. You'll have it in maybe your first or second slot, depending on how many books you spawn with in your mod pack. But in some you will not spawn with the Astral Tome at all, which is what the guidebook is called in this. Now, in order to make this tome, you're going to need 1 aquamarine surrounded by paper. In order to make parchment, you'll get 4 parchment in total for each craft. And then with the parchment, you also need a book and another 3 aquamarine in order to make the astral tome, and you'll get only 1 astral tome. Now, with this astral tome, this will tell you everything you need to know when it comes to the mod. However, it's all lore based. So when you first start, you'll see here, looks like the galaxy. This mod is all about the stars. So the first one you'll see is discovery, but there's not a lot else. You will discover other nodes around the book the further you get along in the mod. But first you have discovery, and you cannot unlock the next steps until you've completed the steps inside. Now we've already covered the rock crystals and the ores, we've already covered over the marble. You can also get sooty marble, which is crafted by surrounding coal with regular marble, and the astral tome. Now there's one other thing we need to find in the world before we can actually start with the mod, and that is constellation paper. Constellation paper can only be found in shrines. Now, luckily for us, in this small shrine here, inside the chest, we actually find 2 constellation papers. Now, when you hover over them, it says constellation paper, there is nothing there. However, when you pick it up, you will actually learn something. You memorize the drawing of Amara. Now, Amara is a type of constellation in the sky, and at this level, there are only 5 in total. So go around and collect as many as you can. Now, picking up these 2, I've now found all the different types that is at this level. There's only 5 in total. Now, if you shift right click while holding the Astral Tome, you actually have a place of storing these constellation papers. So when you're traveling around, keep the Astral Tome with you, and then you can store up all the constellation papers in here. Now, if you open up the book and we click on constellations in the top right hand corner, we can see all the different types that there are. So far, I have discovered Dissidia, Eversio, Avitus, Armara, and Visio. Now, all of these have different properties and they will be used later on in the mod, but for now, they're not too important. Not at this stage anyway. But if you are going around and you find more than 5 of these constellation papers, most likely they'll continue to say that there is nothing here. But keep them with you anyway, as later on they could be unlocked to get more improved and more of an upgraded version of constellations. But anyway, moving on, the next best thing to make with your aquamarine is a resonating wand. The resonating wand is basically the most important tool when it comes to Astral Sorcery. It is going to complete crafts or initiate crafts, as well as locate us some of these rock crystals. So, in order to create the resonating wand, you're going to need 2 pieces of marble, 2 aquamarine, and 1 ender pearl in order to make this wand. Now, by itself, it doesn't really do anything. You can't right click it, you can't hit with it, it doesn't really do anything. In order to find these rock crystals first, we actually need to make it nighttime. And now it's a bit dark. In fact, the sun's just going down. So, we have the resonating wand. When holding it in our hand, we can start walking around the surface levels of the world and you'll start seeing these particles appearing. What these particles mean is that if we dig straight down while standing within those particles, we will find some rock crystals. Now over here, you can see that we've got some rock crystals right here. So if we line ourselves up and dig all the way deep down into bedrock. Now I'm going to dig down there ahead of time and put some torches down. So I've gone down pretty far and I am now at level 7, as you can see in the left hand side there. But as you can see, there's not really any rock crystals here. What we can do while holding the resonating wand again, we will start seeing some particles underground. Now these particles are going to show us where these rock crystals actually are. So if we dig around just a little bit, we'll start seeing, here we go, we've got some rock crystals. So I've put myself in survival mode just to show how this works. Now these rock crystals can be broken with the stone. And as you can see, I dropped 2 out of that 1 ore. Now, the fortune enchantment, I do believe, actually affects these rock crystals. However, at this stage, you're probably not going to have that enchantment, so it doesn't really matter. But something to note: when you're looking at these rock crystals, at the moment they say something seems to be here, but understanding of it is not yet revealed. Which means store these up. You don't need mega amounts of them to begin with, but store these up. But don't use them for any crafts that you see in the book as of yet. If you see in JEI or whatever mod you're using to see all these different tools, don't use your crafts yet. Don't use up these rock crystals, as more information will come from them later, which is very important. So now that we have everything, it's time to actually start with Astral Sorcery, and the first thing we're going to make is this luminous crafting table. Now the luminous crafting table is made very, very simply, and this is where our shrine gets involved. So first off, we're going to need a regular crafting table, nothing special, you don't need to add anything else, but we do need to go to this crystal that is in either the ancient shrine or this desert shrine. Now what we've got to do is somewhere near this rock, it doesn't matter how close, but you just got to place a workbench down. You'll see it starts to glow. What's essentially happening is this is shining a ray of starlight against this workbench, and eventually it's going to change into our luminous crafting table. Now, also something to mention, you don't need to have your Astral Tome with you, but your Astral Tome is going to update after completing this step and give us another node of what we need to actually do in the game. Now, when trying to create the luminescence table, you may notice that it's taking a bit of time. Something you have to make sure of also is with this collector crystal, it must have direct view of the sky. So unfortunately this obviously spawned in a mountain, so I had to dig way up. Hopefully in your version though, it will be a little bit more out in the open. But you need to give the collector crystal a direct view of the sky in order for this to change. So now that we've actually opened up a hole and placed this down, you see that it actually changes really quickly. So, after creating the luminous crafting table, something you'll notice that within side of your Astral time, you will have unlocked a brand new node. This is exploration, and this is where the mod really starts to open up. And this is what we're going to cover today. Now that you have your luminescence crafting table, it's time to actually bring your luminescence crafting table outside, as all your crafts will need a direct view of the sky. As well as that, it's actually going to need to be nighttime in order to complete any crafts at this level of the game. So the first craft I would actually like to show here is for the light well. The light well is a tool that will allow us to generate a new liquid in the game called Starlight. Liquid Starlight to be specific. Now this takes a couple of new blocks as well. It requires 2 aquamarine, a rock crystal, as well as 2 chiseled marble and 3 runed marble. Now, quickly just before we go into it, these are all the different types of blocks that are added into Astral Sorcery. Marble's the only naturally spawning one, the rest are all crafted. So for marble slabs, they are created the exact same way, and stairs as you would in vanilla Minecraft. The rest, however, for marble arch, simply 2 marble, you'll get 2 marble arch. Engraved, 5 for 5. Pillars, 2 for 2. Runes, you actually need to make a chiseled marble, then 2 more marble, but you still get 3 for 3. Marble is 4 for 4, and then stairs and slabs respectively. And then in here you'll see when you place in your items into the luminescence crafting table, you'll see that nothing's happening, there's nothing here, but there is a bar. This bar basically describes how much starlight is being absorbed into the luminescence crafting table in order to complete. So if we make it into nighttime here, just doing night, this will make it the beginning of the night. You'll see it's still sunset here. And you'll see that we have a little bit of a bar now, but you can also see this darker blue. The dark blue shows how much light you actually need, how much starlight this is, how much starlight you need inside the crafting table for the craft actually be achievable. And we are just below this level. So if we change it to not just night, let's change it to a later part in the night. This is about just past midnight. In fact, the moon's just over that mountain there. You'll see here that it's well and truly into the middle here, as it's a lot later in the night. The more it is to midnight, the more starlight you have, so you can potentially get a little bit more just with how everything is alone. And you'll see that the craft is ready to be completed when you can see the completed result on the side here. However, you can't click on it just to take it out. You have to use the resonating wand. When you hold in your hand and right click on the luminescence table, you'll start getting some effects. Depending on the craft will determine how long it will actually take, but then eventually your light well will spawn. However, before we go into what the light well works and what you can do with it, I would just like to say how rock crystals are probably a little bit different if you have noticed. So, if you get some rock crystals, I've just gone and broken some of these, you can see that instead of all of them saying something seems to be here, but understanding it is a bit different. Or not yet revealed, sorry. You'll see that you can now see a couple of statistics. You've got size, purity, tool efficiency, there's also tool durability, there we go, and shape. Those are the current statistics you can currently get in 1.16. Now if you're playing in an earlier version of Astral Sorcery and trying to follow along, this is all brand new to 1.16. In 1.12.2 it was all based on how big it was, yes, as well as the purity and cutting, but those were the only 3, and you could grow a crystal up to the maximum amount. It would split in a whole different tutorial, but that we're not talking about 1.12, we're talking about this new system here. Now, a rock crystal can have up to 8 accumulative properties. So what does that mean? If you scroll over here, you'll see that we got a rock crystal here for size 1, shape 2, tool efficiency 2. What that means is 1, 2 plus 2, that equals 5. So that is 5 different properties, but it can have a maximum of 8. So in theory, you could have a 3, 3 and a 2, or 2, 2 and 2, giving us 6. It could be anything. Now these statistics are going to be random depending on the ores that you'll break. So you've already maybe collected an X amount of rock crystals already, and all of those are going to have different properties. But as you can see, some of them still say something seems to be here, but your understanding is not yet revealed. Later on in the mod pack, you will actually discover more properties that some rock crystals can have. Now there are ways of actually increasing these rock crystals and how potent each of these majiggas are, each of these statistics. So that again is going to be using the light well. In order to grow these to get better rock crystals, you're going to need to bathe or bath, or however you want to describe it, soak these rock crystals in a bucket of Starlight, which you get obviously with the light well, which will demonstrate that slowly. Now on the base level, these properties by themselves don't do too much. However, later on we will be showing some tools that can be made where some of these properties may actually need to be used for certain effects. But at this level, don't really worry too much about the rock crystals. However, any craft that you would like to make with these rock crystals, I recommend choosing some that have a low amount of properties. So try and find your lowest amount. Maybe it has just one of you has a size one or a purity one. Use those for your crafts, as those will be the hardest ones to actually grow in size later on. So definitely don't use something like this where it's purity 2, shape 2 and durability 1, where it's got so many effects. Now let's demonstrate the light well. How the light well works is if you put either aquamarine or a rock crystal into the light well, starlights will start being created. So with aquamarine, it's basically almost like a flat rate of starlight that can be put in. But with the rock crystal, now that we've shown how all these different purities work, if you put a rock crystal with a higher amount of properties or a higher purity or something like that into the light crystal, the light well will use the rock crystal a lot longer, as each of these have a random determined life points, if that makes sense. So let's just put some aquamarine on here to begin with, and you'll see that it starts filling up this pool. Now we are in the daytime, however if it was nighttime, the amount of starlight that is actually created will be increased, but at the same time it will also make the disintegration of your item on the light well to be increased as well. Something else the light well is also good to use is here we are using mechanism for this, but you can also extract from the bottom of the light well, if you're using a mob that utilizes pipes, into sucking out these liquids. So if I change that there to pull, you'll see the liquid starts being sucked out and can actually be stored in a tank. It's pretty useful stuff. So if you wanted this constantly on the go, you could have maybe some sort of dispenser, or maybe some auto right clicker, or even just a hopper, auto putting this stuff on, and then you can have maybe a roll of them, you can have multiple, all going into a tank later to be used in various crafts. However, something to note is with the light well, when you are actually creating stuff, you can't get your item back. So now the aquamarine's on here, we cannot right click it back off. We have to wait until it's disintegrated or break the light well and then move it. Also, liquid starlight cannot be pumped back into the light well. Once it's come out of the light well, that's it, it's gone. However, you don't actually do any crafts inside the light well, so there's nothing too much to worry about there. Placing down a second light well here just while that is going. Something else you can also do is using netherrack. You can put netherrack into the light well and actually start generating lava. The same thing can be done. That can also be pumped into a pipe and then stored later in a tank. Now, there's a couple of properties that the liquid starlight can actually do. So you need 1,000 millibuckets in order to actually pick up one starlight. It's going to take a bit of time for that to come around. So let's just quickly spawn in a bucket of starlight. There's a couple of things that a bucket can do, mainly affecting water and lava. To begin with, something to note is that liquid starlight, it flows a lot quicker than water. It's very, very quick. As well as that, when you jump into it, you'll actually get night vision. So in a second, it should, there we go, in the center, night vision. So I believe it's only with like full blocks, as it didn't activate till I'm in the center, but I imagine it should be whenever you get in the center there. Also, I heard a smash. It looks like the netherrack actually smashed before the aquamarine, so let's just place another one there to get a bit of lava. So that's how that works. Something else is that with the Starlight, it will freeze over water. So you see here, it's just freezing it entirely, and this is actually creating packed ice, which is very surprising. And if you put it on top, you'll see it starts creating it like this. It's a bit strange how it doesn't actually freeze the water. It's almost like the water freezes it. And if we try putting water onto the Starlight, it does do that. Also, when pouring liquid Starlight onto, say, lava, something else that also happen is the lava will actually turn the liquid Starlight into sand, which means you could actually make either a packed ice or a sand generator. So I've quickly knocked up this little thing here. Very, very simple stuff. I've got an auto block breaker there from Cyclic. It's not actually going to anywhere to be collected, but this is just as demonstration purposes. So if I go into here and say this to always be on, what will happen is when I activate this, lava will start flowing in, but then the lava will start changing the liquid Starlight into sand. As you can see, this is just constantly breaking away. Now, something else that can also happen, if you have large amounts of liquid Starlight bucketed, what you can actually do is put lava on top of the source blocks, and potentially the source blocks will actually turn into aquamarine themselves. It's a little bit rare, but it can happen. Now, the last thing I want to show is that we can make something called infused wood. If you drop a log, it doesn't matter what type of log, any log, into some liquid Starlight, it will change into this infused wood. So it's a one-for-one sort of thing. The liquid, I don't believe the Starlight doesn't ever get used, but we can make as much infused wood as we like. And it's used for many, many crafts. So if you put it in the Illuminescence crafting table, you can take infused wood and make infused wood planks, and then this is going to be our next item we're actually going to show, using infused wood. So what we're trying to make here now is the Fosic Resonator. I'll explain what it does shortly. For this, we're going to need 2 infused wood, which obviously we'll get from dropping into liquid Starlight. We need a bucket of liquid Starlight, 2 marble, 1 aquamarine, and 1 gold. Now again, this needs to be done in the nighttime. So again, we'll right click with the wand, it will start doing its craft, and eventually it will pop off and come into existence. There we go. Now, the Fosic Resonator can only work at nighttime. What it is essentially going to do is find a higher concentration of Starlight's energy, I suppose you could say. So while it's nighttime, if I turn around here, you can see we've got a lot of this mist. This mist is basically a high potent area of Starlight. So we've been doing the crafts just randomly wherever you are. You've been doing crafts outside at nighttime. However, once you have this created, or you'll be able to put your luminescence crafting table inside of this mist. Now, it disappears obviously when you're not holding this as well. So if we right click in here, we'll see that this is like about maybe a quarter of the way to the end. But when we go over to, say, something like here, it's only just gone past half. So it's not a major increase, but there is still an increase there. Now, I don't think there's any sort of thickness, like I don't think if you did it on the end, it would change ever so slightly. Let's actually test this now. So here it gets to, actually, that does seem to be the case. Just ever so slightly. Oh, yeah, ever so slightly, being in a thicker bit of fog actually creates even more Starlight. So probably around this water, it could be just the water that actually does it. But the thicker the better, the more Starlight you'll gain. Now from here on out, I'm not going to keep flicking towards day and night for every single craft. You're just going to have to take my word for it. That's how it works. Pretty much any craft you want to do in the luminescence crafting table, you need to do at night time. But moving on, we want to create another way of increasing the amount of starlights we want in our luminescence altar. So even when we're inside the cloud, this isn't full. And some crafts are going to need a completely full charge inside of the luminescence altar. So how do we actually increase this? We can increase the amount of luminescence or the amount of starlight going into the luminescence altar by creating astral relays. Now, in order to make astral relays, we're first going to need glass lenses. Glass lenses are created inside the luminescence altar. It requires 4 aquamarine and 1 glass pane. That will give us 1 glass lens. Then, inside the luminescence altar again, we're going to need 2 planks, 1 marble, 2 golden nuggets, and a glass lens. Now what this is going to do is create ourselves the astral relay. However, to actually use this astral relay, we are going to need a second glass lens. So bear in mind, you should absolutely have a second glass lens for this. So if we go over to our luminescence crafting table here, and we place this down, and then we put this here, you'll see that it's not actually really doing anything. It's not until nighttime that we discover that it should be doing something. So it may be nighttime for you, you've placed this down and think, oh, why isn't this working? This, surprisingly, is actually a multi-block structure and requires to be built in a specific configuration. So if we go into the book here and go to Astral Sorcery and go to Astral Relays, we'll see here's the relay, but then you need to make a little platform underneath your astral relay and then put a glass lens on top of it. So I'm going to quickly spawn these items here, and then I'll create this here. So it's, if you're also hovering the corner here on this star, it will tell you all your required materials. As well as that is that you can do this level by level if you want to. This is only 2 levels, so it's not really necessary, but you can also show or hide the air blocks. So once you complete your little multi-block structure here, you'll start seeing some particle effects, and what this is doing is sending extra starlight energy in the air straight towards the luminescence altar. And as you can see, we're now completely full. Just with one of these and being in the dark zone, we have now got a completely full bar for any crafts that we want to accomplish. So I've set up a quick test here. You can create an astral relay 16 blocks away from the luminescence altar. So it's quite a way. You could fit so many around the area. And something else you can even do, which is very, very interesting, is that you can actually create or use other sources or other blocks of the same altar in order to create. So as you can see, this one's also working as well. These blocks have been shared between 2 astral relays, but they are 2 different structures. It's very clever how this mod works. The next thing we're going to make is actually for finding new constellations. So at the moment you may have only found up to 5 constellations in total, but this one is going to allow us to see the next level of constellations. This here is the looking glass, essentially a type of telescope. This is going to require one of these glass lenses, which we've created already, 4 sticks, 1 gold and 1 plank. Now, again, you are going to need to be in nighttime for this, because obviously there's no stars during the day. But if you hold this in your hand and right click, you'll see and you'll be able to look around, and obviously when you look at the sky, it's just nice, bright and blue. But when we go into nighttime, we'll start seeing the stars. So if you look around the stars ever so slowly, you've got to look up and down ever so slightly, and you'll see that eventually you'll start seeing some stars that are a little bit thicker than all of the rest. So I have finally found the stars I was looking for. As you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points of these stars that are slightly bigger. Now, with looking at your constellation papers that you should be holding in your astral time, you can have a look at your constellation papers by right clicking and see what there could be available to you. So this here is Armara and this here is Visio. Now this looks very similar to what we have in the stars. So now that we have that, let us now hold shift here and actually draw this constellation. And what it will do, it will automatically etch itself into our minds. So there we go, achievement got it. I can see clearly now. We have discovered the constellation of Versio, and when we look in the sky, we can actually see the constellation itself. So and also the constellation paper has turned a little bit lighter cyan or whatever. So if you have all 5 of the constellations that you have available to you inside of your astral time, you can put them out, and night by night you can get a different constellation. Some nights you will get absolutely 0 constellations, sometimes you just won't get any, and some you'll get a different type. So you're going to have to do this over a period of time, as each night is different and it's all dependent on the phase of the moon. So as you can see, this is pretty much a full moon, but if we waited one more day and then it maybe was a half moon or a quarter moon or even some sort of solar eclipse, you'll get different constellations depending on what's in the sky. Now, also in this stage of the mod, there are some cool tools that you can actually create. The first of which is sort of like a light source. This is illumination powder. This requires you to go to the nether, as you're going to need glowstone dust, 4 of, and 1 aquamarine. And what this is going to do is actually provide you with a little bit of a light source when you right click on the ground. So when we right click on the ground here, you see that it just places a light source. It's very nice. It gives you just like a little bit of an orb, but this doesn't actually go away. I don't believe it goes away until you actually place a block on top of it if you wanted to get rid of it. You can't break it or anything like that, so it's very handy. It's a nice way of perhaps having your base area looking a little bit nicer, as when you're a little bit far away you can't actually see the particle effects, and there's also not the chance of you breaking any torches while walking around. Something you can make from this illumination powder, also requiring 4 runed marble, 2 aquamarine, is the cave illuminator. Now the cave illuminator is very powerful, as what it's going to do is, if we go fly to the top of this mountain here and actually break all these torches, so as you can see it's very dark in here, but if we go up top here and use our cave illuminator, what it will do is when we place this down, it will detect all the caves that are down inside of the caverns and actually light it up. So if we go down here now, we'll see that there is actually light sources, and it's even light sources. The cave illuminator is automatically placing them down over time in all the places that are the light levels where enemies could spawn. So it takes a bit of time, but it constantly expands. So the way the book has described it is that the more starlight that it is using, the cave illuminator that is, the wider coverage you'll actually get, which you can get, it just says a wide area, but in a spiraling vertical layers of 8 meters apart. So what it also means is that if we were to actually place our cave illuminator here inside the mist, so if we make it nighttime so it actually starts doing up here, if we now place this down, it's going to start doing a very, very large area as it's actually in the mystified sections. As well as that, as if we take this, it should, one of these spectral relays should actually start going over to there. Okay, that doesn't seem to be the case. But there are other ways of powering this, not just being in the mist. You can also use the an advanced initiate's illumination wand, but we don't have that at this stage of the mod. The last type of powder we're going to be showing off is this nocturnal powder. This is going to require 2 coal or 2 charcoal, illumination powder, blue dye and black dye. And this nocturnal power is a little bit dangerous, so you have to be careful. If we go into easy mode, just for that, it doesn't matter whether it's day or night, if we right click this on the ground, mobs will start spawning very, very quickly inside this little area. So this is not a bad way of doing a quick mob farm. Say you want to get loads of XP rather quickly, you could have a dedicated farm set up, place this down, and suddenly mobs will just start spawning out the wazoo. However, doing it in the same place repeatedly will give you diminishing returns over time. It does not multiply the amount of mobs or anything like that, and obviously it fizzles out over time, but you can sort of put it in a large area. But you can't be too close, otherwise it will not work. The anarchy. And finally, we get to the basic tooling of this mod. You can get all the basic tools. You can get a pickaxe, axe, sword, shovel, as well as a hoe. But something interesting about it is dependent on the rock crystals you use is dependent on the variance that your pickaxe will get. So if you were to use, say, a large shape, maybe a shape 3 or a purity 3 with maybe a tool efficiency of 3, you'll get a pretty good speeding axe. But what we have here, let's just have a check. We have got a shape 2 and something else. We have a size 3 purity 1 tool efficiency 1, and we have here a shape 1 and a something else. That is exactly what we've got in here. So if we make this nighttime just so we can place it down, let's see what we're actually going to get from this. So here we've got our first pickaxe, and as you can see we have got a size of 6, shape 1, tool efficiency 1 and something else. So let's test these out. I've put myself into survival mode here, and let's test this out against a diamond pickaxe. So a diamond pickaxe, it's not too bad. We all know how it goes. It's a little bit okay. However, when you're using a crystal pickaxe, it's a little bit faster. Just a little bit, just a touch. Nothing major, but it's very handy. And also something else you can have, obviously we've got tool efficiency on here. Tool efficiency can actually go up to all the way to level 3, as well as tool durability. So it doesn't actually say the durability of this, unfortunately, but there are plenty of mods out there that do actually tell you the durability. But if you have a higher tool durability, the longer it will last as well. For this level, however, the only things you're really going to be worried about are probably tool durability or efficiency. The shape and purity, I will recommend trying to get those up as well, as they will help you out later in the long run. But for now, this is the basic level of what these tools can do. It's almost like very early game enchants. Now there is one more thing we need to show in the tutorial today, and that is the next stage of the crafting altar, because as you can see there's not a lot left here in this section. To get further you need to make the next level of altar, which is the Starlight crafting altar, different from the luminescence crafting table. Now again we're going to need to be in nighttime for this, and we are going to place our items in. It's built with 4 marble pillars, 2 chiseled marble, 1 liquid starlight bucket, and a rock crystal. I recommend choosing your lowest rock crystal for this, just because later things will be better. Now it doesn't need to be 100% full, but we've got it 100% full, which is very, very handy. And then we can right click on this and the luminescence table will start changing. Now it may take a little bit of time to begin with, it's pretty quick, but the later crafts are a bit more difficult. And you see that our knowledge has been expanded. We are now into attunement. Now the attunement is the next stage. We're not going to be covering all of this today, but something to note, this Starlight crafting altar is not usable as of right now. It's not as simple as a luminescence crafting table where you can place it down, just start using it. The Starlight crafting altar is actually a multi-block structure. When you right click on here, luckily you keep the bucket, you'll see that we have this red bar. That means that this is an incomplete structure. How this is actually built, it explains in the book. A quick way for anyone who doesn't know, you can scroll in and out to go to your constellations, but if you click constellation and back to research, it just zooms you out entirely. It's a lot quicker. If you go to exploration, go to Starlight, and go to the next page, you'll see that this is actually quite a large structure. So I recommend you make these blocks first, like such as the sooty marble. The sooty marble needs to be made in the luminescence crafting table. Sorry, that's a lie. It doesn't need to be created in the luminescence crafting table. I'm completely wrong. You can create it straight away, but the rest you have to make in crafting table. So I'm going to build this structure here. Just like with the other structures, shows you how many items you're going to need, as well as you can make it layer by layer. So here we have the finished Starlight altar. It's not too big, but it is a little bit big, and I had to move my astral relay in order to actually craft this. As you can see, at this level, it's just over 3/4 of the way. But something we can do, of course, is recreate our little astral relay. This is something I often do myself. In fact, personally, I don't even place these astral relays down until I've got to this level, as it's not exactly needed right off the get-go. And even just with one in the mist, it's nearly entirely full. But something to note, you don't have to be in the mist. Like, you can make this outside of the mist, and I generally do this because I can't find the mist, or maybe I'm playing a Skyblock mod pack where you can't see the mist. And what you could do is just literally wait until you get to this point and just put one on all 4 corners. It's a nice way of making it look symmetrical, as well as giving you a lot of power. Something else to note about the Starlight, or the Starlight crafting altar, is that you also have extra crafting grids as well. So you've got the regular 3x3, and then you have some more spots later. And some of the later crafts that we're going to get to in attunement are going to use these spots as well. But all that is going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for stopping by. If this tutorial helped you out in any way, shape or form, please give me a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And join the Discord. I will leave a link down to that down in the description. Next time we are going to be going all through attunement, so ring the bell to find out when that next video goes live. Until next time guys, take care.